Hi, I'm Kristin Clark, and I'm here with Bobby Hood for another installment of College Planning Untangled, where we try to simplify the college planning process for our parents and students out there thinking about college. How are you doing today, Bobby?
Just great. I'm really excited that we've got a great guest for this week, and that's always a lot of fun.
I know, right? And normally we're talking about getting kids in school and how that's all working and how to make that simple for parents. And today we're going to talk more about parents' emotional well-being when their kiddos go off to college.
I mean, that's important. I mean, people joke about it, but I mean, it's a big deal,
Yeah,
right?
and I gotta tell you, I see a lot of, I'm on a lot of the college Facebook boards and all that good stuff and watch. And parents have a really tough time with this. I gotta tell you, much tougher than I had. I don't know what that says about my parenting, but some people really go through this grieving process. So
Mhm.
it'll be interesting. I'm gonna go ahead and pop Tammy Hoyman
Great.
into the chat. Tammy,
Welcome,
hi, how
Tammy.
are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Good. So Tammy comes to us through EFR.org, and it's an employee and family resources um, program for employers, and then they also help students. So Tammy, tell me a little bit about EFR.
Great. I am so excited to be here. Employee and Family Resources is a private nonprofit organization. Our biggest program is our Employee Assistance Program. It's nationwide. We serve employers and employees, providing all kinds of support, including counseling and support services. And then we also have a student assistance program that focuses on providing counseling and support to students and families, which is the perspective I'm going to be talking about today.
Yes, and I'll tell you what,
Neat.
there are so many great programs available, Tammy, that I just don't think that people take advantage of.
I think that's absolutely true. I think people get so focused on the academics and the other parts of college that you kind of forget about the social and emotional transition that your student and your family are going to be going through. So there are lots of different resources available in most communities, and I think it's really important for parents and their kids to be thinking about that as they go through this big change.
I think so too, and I'll tell you, I'm actually happy to see that the mental health topic
Mhm.
Mhm.
much more mainstream and much more okay to talk about,
Mhm.
for families and out in public. And it's amazing once you hear one person talk about it, then all of a sudden everybody's going, ooh, 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 yeah, me too.
Absolutely. The conversation has been started, and it's really unfortunate that we had to go through a pandemic to make it okay to start talking about mental health. But I think that really was a starter for that conversation when we were all feeling so lonely, so isolated. The cases of depression and anxiety skyrocketed. Kids
Mhm.
off to college were then back home trying to do classes virtually or sitting in their apartments, and I think it became overwhelming for all of us, and we had to talk about it. So it's
Yeah.
one of those silver linings that came out of the pandemic, which is not
Right.
completely over, unfortunately.
Yeah. It
Yeah, and I
is.
think
I mean,
that I think we're going to be dealing with that for a while.
Correct.
absolutely. Yeah. And, we talk a lot on this in College Planning Untangled. The two of us bring on people to talk about how it's not just getting your student into college, right? It's making sure they're going to be happy at college
Hmm.
and that they can avoid those statistics about that Kristin brings up a lot about the number of students who don't complete first year, who just drop out
Hmm.
after first year, and the number of students who take 5 or 6 years to graduate.
Hmm.
And that's because they had to transfer schools because they weren't happy at a school or whatever. And I think I think the depression and anxiety we know it's always been there, but
Correct.
it's been a hidden thing and the parents don't see it because nobody would talk about it. And so now, maybe there was more during the pandemic, but a big part of it is just people are just suddenly talking about it and learning to address it. And that's, I'm so excited because I don't, when I help students apply to college, it's a big part of the conversation to say, okay, wait, are you going to be happy here? Because when
Right.
somebody's applying to a place that, they're going to struggle to compete, that's not a good place for them, maybe.
Right. Yeah. I think you're spot on in terms of the awareness around these issues. And, part of the reason I was so excited to be here today was to help parents know how to start those conversations with their college students. And, how much is okay to ask and what should I be looking for? And I think more than anything, as a parent, I have to be healthy and feeling, at top of my game to be able to then support and help my students. So I think paying attention to what's going on as your student goes off to college yourself is extra important as well, because, we're not any good to helping and supporting others if we're struggling ourselves.
Gosh,
Yeah,
yeah,
for
I
sure.
hadn't thought about how, I guess, getting your kid through all these years of school and everything, it's constant activity. It's so busy. It's just you have no time to think about anything because you're constantly moving, and then suddenly, yeah, you've got a lot more free time, suddenly, and you may not realize the emotional impact that's going to have.
That's so true.
It's so overlooked. That's amazing.
I can speak both from a professional and a personal perspective. I remember after my daughter went off to college, the house was so quiet. She was like the energy in our house. And you've got the empty seat at the dinner table. And, I think I had to acknowledge I'm going through some grief here. And our family didn't die, but our family changed. And I think for parents to acknowledge that and work through that, because that's the only way you're going to get through grief, is you've got to work through it. Can't just
and understand you're not alone, and other people feel this too, and it's okay to feel it. And yeah,
right. And it's a normal thing. And so even if you don't have that big shift in the family dynamics, maybe you still have a house full of kids and pets and all of the other things have still changed. Your family dynamics are a little bit different. And, I think it's okay. And I think, I've talked to some parents too, or I've had some friends or professional acquaintances that it was great. We've been waiting for this. This is awesome. And that's awesome too.
Oh, sure.
Being able to launch your child and feeling like they're truly ready and you have prepared them, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's really a spectrum, and I just think it's okay.
Absolutely.
But take a look at it.
So
Yeah,
what
and
resources do you offer to people? Like what could, the parents I work with and students, what can they do?
Well, I think there's a number of things from, kind of self-help kinds of things, journaling what's going on with you, talk to your friends. It's okay to reach out for help, support, validation, all the way to the, more formal end of the spectrum where you reach out to a counselor and you talk about what's going on and, maybe figure out some ways to cope with or deal with whatever emotions you're going through. One of the things that I found helpful and I often talk to people about is the importance of finding other things to fill our time. And, most of us were chasing around our kids' activities for 13 or more years. And then you're no longer gone all weekend for tournaments or taking kids to practices or going to plays or whatever the activity is. So what am I going to do when I have more time on my hands? And, I think keeping busy and figuring out productive ways, what did I used to do before I had kids?
Oh my gosh, can I remember back that far?
Okay.
No, I know.
That's funny.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I read a lot too on the college boards and I find fascinating is that some of the people that are going through this, Tammy, still want to have that control factor in their kids' lives. And I think that's how they're filling their time, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Mhm.
let's talk about that a little bit, because, I'm just of the, it's like, let them go, let them make their mistakes. We all did it, and we're all
Yes.
still living, which is
Right.
amazing. But how do we help parents set healthy boundaries?
Yes, I think that's really important for lots of us who have control issues. That's our default. When I don't know what's going on with my kid, I want to pick up the phone, I want to text, I want to understand everything that's going on all day. It is really important for us to set those boundaries that allow our kids to figure out those things on their own. I mean, when they were little, we let them skin their knees. And when they're big, we have to let them make a few of those mistakes and figure out their own time management. We have to have them figure out what the healthy decisions are for them. And a friend of mine just sent me a text the other day that said every bad idea started out as a good one. And isn't it the truth? I mean, you don't move into something going, yeah, this is going to be a disaster. And as a parent, that is really, really hard. And I think it's best to acknowledge that your kids have to figure those things out. I think the teachings that you have are so important and spot on, and so parallel to what I would say is good for the student's social and emotional health, because that's developmentally they're becoming independent individuals separate from their parents, and they've got to have that self-discipline instead of following mom and dad's rules. I got to make my own rules.
And you probably know better than I do on this, but what I kind of see is, I think it's more of the parent wanting that control than the kid wanting the parent to have the control, right? So for a parent that's kind of feeling like that they're overstepping a little bit, I shouldn't even say that they're feeling that. They might not even be noticing it. What can they notice, I guess, to help them realize that they need to maybe back off a little bit?
Right. I think it's okay to have the conversation with your student and say, and think, okay, the one thing that I recall was talking to the financial aid office and figuring out what was going on with tuition and all of that. She didn't sign the release for me to talk. And I was okay with that, because that was something that she hadn't done before, and she had to figure out how to have those conversations with other adults. So I think having the conversation with your students about, do you want me to schedule that appointment for you? Or is that something that you can do? Do you know how to do that? I think reality checks with other parents are also really good. And maybe being very intentional about those boundaries, maybe take some time to list out, what am I continuing to do for my student that they might be able to do for themselves?
Yeah, I think that's smart, because that might be eye-opening for some as well. That they're doing it from 3, 4, 10 hours away.
Yes.
And, it's kind of like, you don't need to do much of that anymore, to be quite honest. There's not, there are some things that they need our help, right? And
Sure.
I think that it's when they're reaching out to you, my gosh, jump in.
Sure.
But I think too, if you're noticing that you're the one kind of, digging in, yes, and trying to take over, that, it's kind of time to maybe reflect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think in terms of those boundaries, I think it's a really good idea to maybe set a schedule and say, let's talk once a week, or let's talk twice a week, and make sure that unless they're calling you, you are really staying true to those, to the parameters that you put out there, so that they are able to do their, go out there and do their day-to-day activities, classes, clubs, teams, study, figuring out office hours, all of that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how about for the parents that they're never hearing from their kiddo?
I think you take it on a case-by-case basis. Your kid. If you have a kid that has been easily distracted by peers, by parties, by, maybe not so self-disciplined, you might need to check in on them more often. If you have a kid who has done well during those years at home and has seemed to be pretty responsible, I may not be quite as concerned. I might give myself a pat on the back and say, we have a successful launch here.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it really, I don't think it's a one size fits all.
Yeah, you're right. And you know what? As parents, you do know your kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you are the best barometer on how far to push and to pull.
Right.
And I think, in thinking, going back to, our topic and having parents that are going through these emotional changes, I loved what you said earlier about, just kind of reflecting and writing down and thinking about what do you want life to look like right now? I think that's really key here.
It absolutely is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I would think too, with what you were just discussing, we always advise with parents, like in the senior year of school and junior year, when you're preparing, it's easy to get in this mode where you're constantly badgering your kid. Right. And so we suggest, set one day a week where we're going to have a little talk about college admissions. This is the only day I'm going to ask you about it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll just do it once a week. And so I think you could ask for a compromise like that too. If you've got a kid who's just off, never communicating with you, say, hey, look, instead of me badgering you all the time, why don't we just every Sunday have a half an hour or 10 minutes or whatever, and then maybe that would work, it's maybe that you might have a kid who's kind of not communicating much because you were communicating too much and they were feeling overwhelmed. And so they want to have some independence. And so if you say, okay, I promise I will limit it or something, treat them like an adult and see how that works, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's important not to take their reaction to college, either becoming very independent. Don't take it personally. Mm-hmm. Your kid probably still loves you to pieces. I mean, I can't say 100% because I can't speak for everyone, but they're probably doing what they should be doing. And so I think that's sometimes hard for parents to, but that describes the transition. That describes the life change that you're going through. And it just happens so abruptly. Sometimes you drop them off on campus, you drive away, you're 5 minutes out and you want to call and go, okay, so did you get back in the dorm? But just keep driving.
Yes, you're right. And you're right. And that abrupt thing happens when you drop them off. I mean, they get in their dorm and they don't want you there. And that's kind of jarring, I think, for parents. Yeah, I know it was for me. I was like, well, aren't we going to go do something? And he's like, no. Yeah. Like, okay. So I've actually warned parents because I'm like, don't do what I did. Don't go in there thinking you're going to have this great day. It's done when it's done, and move on and be okay. Right.
Right. I had to call my daughter back and go, can I have a hug? And I'm standing outside the car bawling, and she comes and gives me, the obligatory hug. But she did great in college, and she is a productive, really cool adult. And
Tammy, I think you're bringing up a great point, and that is, you know what? Yay that they're ready for you to go, right? That's what you prepared them for. So it's like, I think you need to celebrate those little wins too, to go, man, they're ready for this,
right?
And they will call you when they need you.
Right,
so,
right.
Yeah.
And I applaud the parents that have engaged you to help with getting their students ready for college. And, I think those kids are probably even more ready for this than, me being dropped off, however many decades ago, where I was a first generation college kid and I was figuring it all out on my own, no cell phones, even if I did get a hold of my parents, they didn't have the same experience that I was going through. So
definitely.
I can't advise you the same way.
Definitely having the kiddos know why they're going to college and what they want to get accomplished while they're there is a huge benefit just for them to have that confidence that they're doing the right thing and that they're in the right spot. So you're right. Any way that we can prepare them, I think helps prepare mom and dad too, because when they're going off with confidence, you feel good. You're not as worried. So
sure. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So, Tammy, is there anything that we haven't asked you that you think is important for parents to know?
Looking at my notes, and no, I think we really did hit on all the points that I felt were most relevant and most important. And
that's great.
It's just, once again, I'll just say it's okay not to be okay, and it's okay to ask for help, and reach out. Resources are available.
Yeah, and we will be talking with Tammy in the next couple months about our teens and being at college and some of the other things. We know in October, that's when we have all kinds of roommate issues. So I want parents to be prepared for that. So we'll talk to you in October about that. And then we've got another topic lined up for November. So we'll be seeing you again.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Tammy. This has been great.
It has. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
All righty, guys. See you next time.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.